It's finally Friday. It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
All right, welcome back to the Friday Show, presented by Indiana Racing and that state's Breed Development Fund. I'm Scott Jagow, along with Ray Paulick. Glad you could join us. Coming up, Ray is off to Las Vegas for the National Horseplayers Championship. I've been there before. We'll talk about that event. But first, Ray, the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation came out with a white paper in the last few days about sports betting. And this is obviously a big issue that everyone is talking about. It kind of took a different slant on it. I was curious to see your thoughts about what you read.
Well, I think they presented the challenge very well. And my fear is that racing is just not positioned to adapt to the necessary changes it has to make in order to be competitive with sports betting. Sports betting is now legal in several states. It's going to be legal in more states. And unless racing adapts, it's going to lose market share just the same way it lost market share when casinos started spreading across the country 20 years ago. So it's a big challenge because I think there's much closer overlap between horse players and sports bettors than there was between casino gamblers, slot machine players and horse players. So this is a serious challenge. I'm glad the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation has put so much thought into this.
Yeah, and we know the difficulty of 30-something different jurisdictions and legislatures and commissions. We don't have a league office or a commissioner that gives us the nimbleness to maybe be able to adapt. But what this paper is saying is a little bit different. It's saying, don't think you're going to get a cut of sports betting horsemen from the racetracks that institute this. You're not going to, and if you do, it'll be a very small amount of money. What they're saying is the horsemen should go to the legislatures while this sports betting laws are being written and say, hey, we want to be part of this. We are one of the sports that people will be betting on. So we don't want just our old pari-mutuel wagering. We want fixed odds wagering and maybe exchange wagering. We want the technology available to be used to our advantage for the bettors that are out there that are thinking of sports betting that might also bet on horse racing. So they're saying the horsemen need to take the lead here, be part of the conversation right now as it's happening, or get shut out.
Yeah. The model that racing operates under is archaic. In many states, if a racetrack wants to offer a new type of bet, it has to go through this ridiculous process of, in some cases, legislatively even, but this ridiculous approval process. I guarantee you that when sports betting is approved in states like Illinois, where I know it's coming because the governor says it's something they need, and I think the legislature sees it that way too, they're going to have, as you said earlier, the nimbleness to offer all kinds of bets. Horse racing can't do it under the current structure, and so as the Idea Foundation said, they've got to kind of take the bull by the horns and say, we need change. And it's one of many challenges. Another one is takeout. Takeout in sports betting is 5%. In horse racing, the blended takeout rate is 20%. It's hard to compete. It's easy to say, well, just cut it in half, but there's two different business models. Horse racing has this model where purses and racetrack operating expenses are funded entirely by wagering. The sports leagues don't get anything from betting. What they get their revenue from is television contracts, and that's driven by people that watch sports on TV because they're betting on it.
Yeah, and in fact, in this white paper, Mark Cuban had a quote saying that when the Supreme Court made the ruling that legalized effectively sports wagering, the franchise's value doubled, and that's because of the TV revenue. You get more eyeballs watching because there's a gambling interest. And as you said, the economic model is totally different. Horse racing actually pays to have events on television instead of getting revenue. So, we're stuck in a pretty precarious situation there vis-a-vis sports betting. You mentioned the takeout issue. As you said, I don't think you can make up the handle, but the point is you've got to combine all these things. So you do have to lower the takeout to be competitive with sports betting. And this paper is clearly saying compete. instead of try to join forces with. Lower the takeout, and in addition, offer these appealing options to people who might be new players, like fixed odds. Because the takeout will benefit the current horse player, guys and gals who are already doing it right now, right? The options that are available will appeal to the potential and future horse player. So when you combine those things, you have an answer there. It's definitely an uphill climb, but this paper seems to have some ray of optimism about it.
Yeah, the existing structure doesn't allow racing to do that. There's a couple of states that approved exchange wagering. The only one that actually practiced it was in New Jersey. It's so difficult to be nimble the way the structure is set up in many of these states that have horse racing. And the only way to change that is legislatively.
And again, the answer here, according to this paper, is that the horsemen are the ones that need to go get this done, because the racetracks aren't going to do it. They're welcoming in sports betting because they're going to get revenue off of it, but they're not sharing that revenue at most of these places with the horsemen. So the horsemen are the ones that need to step up here and lobby. They're the ones that are going to have to lobby for this. We have a poll question around this subject. Does racing have the capability to adapt to the landscape that is coming with sports betting? Let us know your thoughts at PaulickReport.com. All right, Ray, so you're going to spend the weekend in Las Vegas at the National Horseplayers Championship to observe it as a journalist, and I've done that before. I'm curious, what are your expectations?
Well, I'm expecting to see hundreds of very serious-minded horse players, studying like it's final exam weekend in college, and doing a lot of yelling at television sets. That's kind of what I imagine it's going to be like.
There is definitely a lot of that. The cramming, though, it really isn't an analogy, because they start weeks in advance for this thing. They are spending a lot of time analyzing video, talking to connections, learning about horses, getting as much information as possible in the weeks and weeks before this event. And then at the last minute, there's some cramming, but they're very prepared, very serious about it. But there's also a social aspect to it. Some people get knocked out early and, off to have some drinks, and the stress is gone. But it is exhausting to even just watch it, because they have to do like 70 plus bets in 2 days. And then it goes to the final table on the last day. And there's nothing like watching them come down the stretch on the last race when there's several people who could take down the top prize. I mean, the tension and the anxiety in the room is beyond palpable.
Well, and it's serious money they're playing for. So it's a good reason for that.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Friday Show, presented by Indiana Racing. There are more than 20 stakes for Indiana sired horses and Indiana bred, with $100,000 plus in the purse, and then there's more than $16 million in incentives. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.